Hello everyone, welcome back to EHS Planning. We are in the Emergency Management Series, and today we are going to be talking about the NFPA 3000 Active Shooter Awareness and Hostile Event Response Training. We're going to go ahead and talk about Active Shooter Awareness and Hostile Event Response Training. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of increased active shooters, hostile events, workplace violence, and so forth. In this series, we're going to go ahead and dive deep into the questions that a lot of us fear and really don't want to talk about, but we need to. This is something that is serious, and it's affecting schools, businesses, your home, your work life, organizations, and events. You can't help but stay isolated and stay in your home all the time. We have to get out. We shouldn't be fearful for getting out. We should be able to get out and go do what we need to do. So today I have a special guest. Today's guest is Dan Libby. Dan Libby is a retired senior master sergeant with the United States Air Force. Over his 26 years of service, he deployed 5 times to the Middle East, where he served in a number of roles, which included military intelligence. He is a recipient of many awards, to include the Bronze Star Medal. He received that while in action in Iraq. Today we're going to dive in deep to talk about the teachings of what he currently is doing. He takes his experience and his trainings to teach others how to prevent or react to acts of violence. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Dan Libby. Dan, thank you so much for joining me today and taking this opportunity out of your day to talk about active shooter awareness training.
Mike's pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your experience and why you are a subject matter expert in this field?
Thanks. That's an excellent question. I have over 26 years of experience in military training and deployments, working with both the Army, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force, preparing for combat operations and for preparing for emergencies, along with some actual practical experience in combat. And so I've taken all the training and all the experience that I've gained along the way to apply that to helping civilians stay safe back here on the home front. So Mike, during my first deployment to Iraq in 2004, I was involved in an ambush on my convoy. Now, my team and I had trained a lot for different types of ambushes, how they would be initiated either with improvised explosive devices or small arms fire, things of that nature. But the first ambush that I was involved in, it really came to light how important the training was that my team and I had to prepare for that. Obviously, it was a life-threatening situation. I didn't know exactly how I would react or how others around me would react, but our training paid off. All of us survived that ambush. We were effective in pushing through that contact, as well as other ambushes throughout the course of that year. But it really impressed upon me the importance of training, situational awareness, understanding your environment, and understanding the actions of others. Taking that information, taking that experience back here to help others learn to read their environment, understand what dangers may or may not be there, and how to avoid or navigate those has been kind of a mission in my life ever since then.
So, a matter of fact, today, Dan, before you arrived, I actually happened to be surfing the internet today, and I came across an active shooter awareness debate and issue that's going on in the American, Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association, 2 different major organizations for education. They're calling for the end to active shooter drills. Now, they don't want the drills to be taught to the students because they're fearing that it's going to affect them. However, but they do want the training for the teachers. So, do you remember when we were kids and we had earthquake drills and fire drills? Some of you might remember this. Well, we still do today, but I'm pretty sure no one from my generation is affected by earthquake drills and have any mental health issues or challenges. Dan, with you being the subject matter expert, why don't you share with the audience your thoughts on that.
Well, Mike, like you, I grew up in Southern California and going through earthquake drills and ducking and covering in school, and it didn't cause me to have any greater fear or any less fear of an earthquake. I think what it did is it taught me to respect the fact that this could happen, right? When it comes to active shooter drills, some stories I've read at schools kind of go a little overboard, where they'll have somebody come in, pretend they're shooting up the school, maybe even using pellets or rubber bullets or something like that, unannounced, creating havoc, and it can be a very scary situation. But I think that conducting active shooter drills in schools, places of business, anywhere like that, is important to build confidence so people know how to react, what to do, where to go, and just follow through with their emergency plans. So I think there's a way to temper some of that training in a way that's not so scary, but in a way that's also effective. I can tell you by personal experience, drilling events like this, when your adrenaline's pumping and the event actually kicks in, your adrenaline's pumping and you can't really see what's going on or think about what's going on, your training will kick in and it'll make you more effective in being able to negotiate or deal with that event.
Absolutely agree.
So I think it's a really bad idea to stop drills altogether.
I agree. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with two of my young daughters recently, a couple months ago, and we talked about active shooter awareness in their schools. One's in middle school, 6th through 8th grade, and I also have a high schooler. We have 9th clearly through senior year. So both of them are receiving active shooter emergency drill training at school, and they actually shared their opinions and views with me with that, and they're accepting it as the norm. And my children are not affected, and I have not seen any other people's children affected by this, nor have I read or seen any stories about that. So what's your take on that part?
Mike, kids today are exposed to all kinds of violence, regardless of whether they're training in school for an active shooter event or not. Video games, movies, even the music they listen to just bombards them constantly with thoughts of violence. You can't turn the news on anywhere today without getting bombarded with some bad news about a violent act that took place somewhere. There's a lot of sensationalism in it. Now, the reality is, when we're talking about schools specifically, schools are about third on the list of places that actually get hit with active shooters. Places of business, open spaces are the top two.
Absolutely.
Then it goes to schools, public transportation, and churches, or places of worship. But it is important, I think, that kids learn how to react and what to do in a dangerous situation, whether it's at school or it's not at school. Training will absolutely instill confidence in them, and I think it'll reduce anxieties and give them stronger resiliency to bounce back if an event like a violent shooting takes place at their school.
I absolutely agree with you. So, active shooter awareness training is really important in the schools. It creates something called muscle memory. Muscle memory is something for those of you out there that are listening, and remember when you're little kids, when we did earthquake drills, what do we do now? Anytime there's an earthquake, it's muscle memory. Just like riding a bike. You know, I don't think that our kids will be affected. I think if anything, it's going to help them be more resilient. At EHS Planning, we offer active shooter awareness training. So if interested, you can see the message down below. Here's the link that'll take you to our website for you to log on and register or get more information. It actually offers a comprehensive approach to helping your organization understand what you should plan for. Emergency action plans, that's another thing that we offer as well. We can come in and do a site walk of your organization, your school, your work, any type of location, any business, private or business, public sector. We offer that for you. So I've had an opportunity to review this manual 2 separate times, actually 3 times, and there's some great reading in here. It talks about recovery, what to do after. With the recovery, it talks about mental health locations, setting up your plan, your local phone numbers in your directory with your emergency It actually helps you out with pre-planning before you even have a hostile event or active shooter. You plan it out, you start out with your drills and training. It actually helps you with what happens during hostile events. And it helps you with recovery after your hostile event, making sure you link up with local healthcare providers, counseling for those individuals who may need that.
Mike, those are all great points. In the military, we kind of have a three-phase approach to the same type of situation. Pre-planning, and training and drilling, the event itself, and then the recovery piece following that event to make sure that we can get back to normal operations as quickly as possible. And I think when we talk about that three-stage process, it's important that we break it up into three easy chunks to consume. So the beginning, you have your threat assessment, your training, your education piece, situational awareness, layout of your facility, people you have to protect and how do you protect them and how do you move them and how do you deal with that situation. And then you roll into the drilling that situation. And then in the event that you have a hostile event take place, an active shooter event, that you can recover from that and resume operations as quickly as possible for you and the people surrounding you, whether it's a school, place of business, what have you. Mike, I also think that in the planning and preparation phase of any hostile emergency planning, hostile event planning, you got to really understand what we're faced with. In the case of an active shooter, we're faced with people that have different motivations and exhibit different behaviors, and a lot of times those behaviors can be detected and the active shooter scenario can be prevented if the appropriate steps are taken.
Hey Dan, speaking of training, I believe you were telling me a little bit ago about some special ops training that you're a part of. Why don't you tell us about one of your stories? He's got some great stories.
Thanks, Mike. So throughout my career, I had the opportunity to run or be a part of an opposition force where special ops teams such as MARSOC or SEALs or even Army Special Forces would come and assault one of our facilities in the Air Force, and my job was to put a team together to try and repel or deter them from meeting their objectives.
Right.
Recently, in the last 6 months, I was able to do that at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, where we had some special forces come in and assault a multi-room, very deep bunker. And it was a very challenging event, but we got a chance to get to know the teams that were coming in, the construct of them, how big the team was, what capabilities they had, what capabilities they did not have. And we were able to form a plan that provided a lot of resistance for them to meet their objective. I will say this though, in every scenario where I was running an opposition force against them, even though we were able to give them quite a bit of resistance, it was like watching an NFL team play a bunch of 8th graders in full contact. That's what it came down to.
Well, that's a pretty good story. Kind of reminds me of, I was part of a force reconnaissance team, and we had an opportunity to do some submarine operations off the coast of, well, can't tell you exactly where it was at, but we also had to do some training off the Big Island of Hawaii, and that was a lot of fun training. Just doing special ops training, it's tedious, but learn a lot. Hey Dan, tell the audience out there a little bit about your time in the Middle East.
All right, Mike, can do. I spent quite a bit of time between Turkey, Iraq, Jordan, and some other places. But I'll tell you, some of the best training that I got was actually not prior to my deployment to Iraq, but actually in Iraq. One of my many jobs over in Iraq was to collect intelligence information about what terrorists were doing, how they were conducting ambushes, how they were assaulting U.S. and British forces and coalition forces, and put those attacks together in a way that it was like an illustrated event. So everybody could look at that and say, okay, this is how the ambush was initiated, this was the follow through, this was the weapons and capabilities that were brought to bear upon U.S. forces. And I presented all of those findings on a weekly basis to a Marine who was in charge of our security team, Marines, right? Who developed quick reaction drills and then trained us on how to respond to those events. So every week we were going through all this training. I would give briefings on enemy tactics, then we would get training on how to respond, and it would just go back and forth. That allowed us to survive every single ambush that we were involved in over that year without taking any casualties of any kind. Now, some people will argue that there's no way you can train for every active shooter scenario. And to some degree that may be true, but you can absolutely train for your environment that you're going to be in. So when we were in Iraq, there was a series of things that would happen, patterns would evolve, whether you were in the cities or whether you were out in the rural areas, driving through the desert. The tactics would vary based on your environment and who was assaulting you. If you get some training on the mindset of an active shooter and understand your environment of where you work or go to school or how you transit to and from using public transportation, you can be better prepared to either avoid or react to a violent act and survive it. You absolutely can.
Absolutely agree. You know, one really important thing that I want our audience to really take away from today's talks are the importance of understanding expectations that law enforcement would like you to know. Their number one goal is to eliminate the threat. So if you come running towards them, seeking help from them, maybe you were injured, they might take you out. So you need to make sure that you have your hands up. You come out with your hands up. You have no cell phone, nothing in your hand. Make sure it's in your pocket. You need to make sure that you're letting them know that. Thanking our sponsor. Yes, West Coast Corporation is our sponsor, and we couldn't have made this video without them, and we really appreciate them with their products. I'd like to share one of the products, Keyback. Keyback is a tether for drop object protection. Excuse me, Dan.
You're good.
But if you have a tool, or if you are up high and you have something, you can easily put this around your loop of your belt, or you can clip on, and you can go ahead and clip this to any type of device. Well, Keyback, they have a lot of different devices. Matter of fact, why don't you hold up one of the other ones? Keyback Pro.
Keyback Pro. It allows you to put your cell phone in a drop protective lanyard, and it still allows you to access everything on your phone through the touchpad, just as if you had the phone in your hand without this tether.
What's the rated weight on that one there?
This one is 1 pound.
And this one here is a 5 pound. So if you have like a drill, if you're in the construction industry and you have a drill, and you can connect this to your drill, and it comes with a little sleeve too. So yeah, I'll show the descriptions on the bottom at the end of the video, and you can get more information. Matter of fact, if you're interested in getting one, I have a coupon discount code, EHS Planning 2, right here. You can see it right here on the bottom of the screen. So you too can get it at a discounted rate. This is an amazing device. It keeps those below you from getting injured. So thank you so much, Keyback Pro, and West Coast Corporation. Thank you so much that you are not a threat. If you are injured and you're laying on the ground and you see them and you're like, oh good, you think help's coming over to help me because I'm bleeding out maybe? They're going to step over you. They're going to keep going. They might even ask you which way did the threat go, but keep in mind the next wave will come in to triage you, and then the third wave will come with a armed security EMS person to come help you. So that's really important, that anything that you take away today is the fact that training is really important.
I think it's a very good point, Mike. Columbine actually changed law enforcement response as we know it today. Prior to Columbine, when law enforcement would show up to a shooting in progress, their job was to surround the facility, bring in a hostage negotiator, and try and talk the person out. Now it's absolutely just like you said. Their job is to breach into the building or push into the building, move towards a threat, and eliminate that threat. But so it's absolutely important that if you want to survive the entire event, you have to present yourself as non-threatening to law enforcement response.
Absolutely agree.
Let them come in, do their job. Follow up to that. The follow-up response is going to be a team of people that will do triage. They will help with first aid. They will help sort people out. And and all that kind of thing. So the first responders, their job is to go in and eliminate that threat. But I think it's also important to note too that a lot of times law enforcement may not get there before the event is over too.
That's true.
And so if in a lot of cases we see suicides involved with active shooters, so they come in, they shoot the place, they commit suicide, or they're taken out possibly by somebody who's there.
Yeah, absolutely.
The law enforcement that are responding are not going to know that that happened. And so again, it's critical. Hands up, maybe lay face down on the ground, comply with all orders so that you can continue to survive the rest of the event.
Let me piggyback on that. In addition to that, it's imperative that you create an emergency action plan, that you make sure you have a list of phone numbers for the aftermath, that you're able to help your team, your organization, your students, your employees, whoever it may be, that you've reached out in advance to coordinate for counseling, for mental health challenges, for anything. With this training, I would highly recommend, whether you use us or you go to another organization, we would like you to reach out to us for any questions. We'd be glad to answer any of them free of charge. If you'd like to take our training, absolutely, you can log on to www.ehsplanning.com. I'll put a link in the description below and right here now. You probably see it on the screen. And that will give you an opportunity to get some more information. We really, really appreciate you joining us today. And I want to thank Dan today. Before we have Dan, before we let him go, any last final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. Just be safe. In everything you do, don't get so complacent or fall into the belief that nothing bad is ever going to happen to you, that it only happens someplace else. That will help get you in the right mindset to be alert to your surroundings. Avoidance should always be the very first go-to in any threatening situation. This is why when you take the training, you'll learn about things like run, hide, fight in that order. Run means get out of there, get out of the way, avoid that conflict, avoid that situation. But it starts with the right mindset. And the right mindset is just simply being aware of what's going on around you. Maybe you don't need to be on your cell phone all the time or tied into texting or anything like that. Take a minute, look around, see what's happening around you. Vigilance and the ability to respond and having a plan, I think, are paramount to your safety. And through Mike's training and courses that I provide in the past, you will absolutely get a better sense of your surroundings.
Situation awareness is real. It could save your life and those around you. I will go ahead and put a link at the bottom that shares with you all the information that will help you. In addition, who knows, maybe Dan will be in one of our trainings if you do decide to take one of our classes. An actual American hero, medal recipient. Hey, thank you again for joining us today. And I'd like to end with just really wanted to thank you for joining us today. We actually are going to do a follow-up video. However, I'd like to hear from you. I would like to read your questions. Please follow us and subscribe, share and like, and hit this little bell over here. And we'll go ahead and answer all your questions. We're going to go ahead and do a follow-up video later on for part 2. So if you'd like to join us, maybe a live phone call, we'll coordinate a date and time in advance, and I'd love to get some of your feedback with some phone calls. Or if you just want to write in some comments, we'll go ahead and answer them live online. So let us know what your thoughts are. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe and like us. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
It actually helps you out with pre-planning before you even have a hostile event or active shooter. You plan it out, you start out with your drills and training. It actually helps you with what happens during a hostile event. And it helps you with recovery after your hostile event, making sure you link up with local healthcare providers, counseling for those individuals who may need that. name is Mike Ureta. I'm with the Health and Safety Engineering team. My role is an engineering technician.